Yo, what the hell is up? Welcome back to Reviews with Jake, where I just got done watching Knock at the Cabin. Knock at the Cabin is the story about a group of strangers who crash a small family's getaway at, you guessed it, a cabin. They then force the three of them to choose one of the three to sacrifice for the cause being, allegedly, to prevent the apocalypse. That's right, you're getting a full breakdown of this one. Why? I wish I could say it's because I love M. Night Shyamalan and I have a lot to say about this one, but unfortunately, that's not the case. It's more so due to the fact that it's already February and I've only reviewed 2 movies this whole year so far, and I look at next week and I don't really have anything planned either. So I don't know, I guess I feel like I'm kind of skimping out a lot lately, even though I promised myself that I'm not gonna settle and watch a movie and review it if I don't really want to do it. And I stand by that. I'm not gonna take the time to do one if I don't really want to watch that movie, but still these idle hands, I feel like they can do so much more. So let's do it. Why not? Let's dust off the cobwebs. I was contemplating doing my first spoiler talk for this one because that would make everything infinitely easier for this particular movie, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. That's a big leap for me. I just don't ever want to be that guy. Even if I slap a caption that says spoiler review in the caption, it's still just not enough for me. I don't feel right about screaming spoilers on top of a mountaintop. Maybe next time. But for now, let's just dive into the spoiler-free nitty-gritty of Knock at the Cabin. Just like old times. To top off the list of pros, I really enjoyed the sound design of this film. That stood out to me immediately upon its starting. The vast majority of this film happens within a single cabin. Not a very large space, but every now and then, stuff happens on the other side of the wall from which the camera is positioned, and they did a good job of building up that audible environment to tell stories that you cannot see. And even when we're in the same room as the action, the sound design just really popped. They squeezed the most out of that lemon. Like little subtle things, like Dave Bautista's footsteps on the wooden floor are just so much louder than everyone else's. I thought this was a nice, brilliant touch. They could have just grabbed anyone's footsteps on wooden ground, but not every man walking on a wooden floor sounds like the behemoth that is Dave Bautista, and it did a good job of amplifying that imposing presence that this man is. On the note of Dave Bautista, and frankly the rest of the cast, this film is very well acted across the board. Starting with our 3 protagonists, the 2 guys, the fathers, I thought both of them did a great job of selling the confusion, the frustration, and the anguish of everything happening around them. Same with the little girl that played the daughter. I thought she shined as well. Always got to give props to very great child actors when they come around. And then our 4 antagonists who all had very different personalities and demeanors. I thought all 4 of them across the board, starting with Dave Bautista, all sold their roles very well. It's a very interesting story because it tosses these characters into this uncomfortable claustrophobic situation. Everyone kind of feels like a victim in a sense, and it's got to be really difficult to act in a part of a film like this. Because your villain, in a sense, does not really have a face, especially if you're believing the word of the people that are presenting the problem to the real protagonists. It's just a very fascinating premise that you could do a lot of really fun things with, and I thought that the whole ensemble across the board did a good job filling these very odd shoes. On sort of a similar note, I thought that the story did a good job fleshing out these characters, far beyond the 100 minutes that we spend with them at the cabin, which is critical for a film like this when a life and death decision hangs in the balance. Because if you don't at least somewhat empathize with the characters, you're not going to feel the real weight of the choice at hand. You're just going to sit there watching them like, oh my god, just kill someone already. They just destroyed Haystack Rock. Haven't you ever seen The Goonies? But no, they did a good job building them up so it doesn't feel so cut and dry of a decision to be made. You learn about all the people involved, a little bit more backstory on them, and these are the things that keep you invested as the film progresses. However, having decent characters is only part of the equation that leads to a good film, and that leads me to the cons. Keeping this one spoiler-free is a difficult line to cross. I'm gonna tiptoe around it by using one of my metaphors. I'm sure you miss those. Watching a movie is a lot like hopping in a car with a group of people and driving somewhere, probably a pretty decently sized haul, in which you have to consider 3 things: the people in the car with you, the actual act of driving itself, as well as where you are heading. The people in the car with you, pretty self-explanatory. The characters, you're jammed into a sardine can with them for a lengthy haul, and you hope they're at least compelling to spend the time with. Then there's the drive itself. It can be long, it can be short. It can be driving across a flat, boring cornfield of Iowa or Colorado through a mountainside where you can just kind of sit and look out the window and just enjoy the ride as the world passes you by. And then finally, there's the destination. What it all leads to. Was it worth sitting in a car for this amount of time driving through whatever it was you had to drive through? Was it worth it in the end? end. Now, for the sake of this particular metaphor, you have to kind of look at the destination a little bit differently with a Shyamalan film, because that guy, the ending is everything. The destination could flip everything crazy. For me personally, I've been burned by this guy enough times that my guard is up while watching any of his movies. Like when I watched The Village, I was hooked on that film. The lore, the monsters, the concept. Everything in the first 2 acts was awesome. But then I reached the destination, the conclusion, his grand twist, and it kind of ruined all of the positive feelings I had before I saw the ending. Ever since that movie, when I watch a Shyamalan film, my guard is up while watching the first 2 acts. It's like I can't even enjoy the ride anymore because I know it all hinges on the destination, the conclusion. So circling back to my metaphor, it's like hopping into a car with a group of people, but you do not know where the hell you're going, but everyone else does, and they're talking about it, they're saying you should be excited, but low-key you're just kind of hoping you don't end up face down in a ditch without your kidneys. With all that said, in regard to this movie, I did enjoy the characters. They were solid pawns and pieces to a concept like this. The drive was okay. It kept me engaged enough. It was a little boring, but I knew that the drive didn't matter. It was all about the destination. I was patient. I was letting it do its thing. I was just curious to see how this movie was going to land this plane. Sorry for switching modes of transportation on you. I'm out of practice. And then the conclusion happens. We finally get to the destination and it's just meh. Not terrible, it's definitely not the worst thing he's ever done. It was just very much par. Which for this movie, par is kind of a disappointment because the whole runtime, they're giving you little pieces of the puzzle, little pieces of fabric to draw this line to that line. You're trying and kind of prepping yourself for something complex. As one always does while watching a Shyamalan film, and then this ending happens and you're just kind of like, okay, what the hell was the point of all of that? And all those feelings just kind of flooded me. This paired with the fact that this film is desperately wanting you to not read too much into anything because at the end of the runtime, things just do not add up. So much flawed logic is present in this film, which oftentimes people can overlook, but when you're watching a Shyamalan film, you are staring like a hawk. You are watching every intricate detail. And in a movie like this, where your audience is watching that close, you cannot get sloppy. Like one example that's not a spoiler if you've seen the trailer, but they turn on the news and they see a news reporter saying, "This disturbing footage just from a couple minutes ago. Let's watch it." It cuts to the footage at the beach that you see in the trailer. It's Cannon Beach, as I mentioned before, and you see this massive tidal wave coming in and just wipes out everyone on the beach, including the person filming the video. How the did the news station retrieve this footage if the guy was literally recording until he was underwater? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. I get it, it's nitpicky and suspension of disbelief happens in movies, but in a Shyamalan movie, you just can't do it because your audience is watching way too closely. On more technical notes, for the most part, this film is pretty well put together, but there are a few things that kind of irked probably just me and a few other dorks. For starters, the overabundance of tight close-up shots. I have no idea why. Perpetual exchanges that went like this. "Hi, I'm Dave Bautista." "Hi, Dave Bautista. I'm a little girl." "Nice to meet you. What are you doing?" "I'm collecting grasshoppers." "Cool." Like, why? I'm all for creative decisions, but this one just didn't make any sense to me, and it persisted throughout the whole film. It'd be one thing if the cabin was small, where you had literal physical limitations with the walls being too tight and you just physically can't fit a camera in there to get wide shots. I've been there before. My recent short that I just finished basically filmed at the size of a broom closet. But the cabin is decently sized and the tight shots happen even outdoors. It doesn't get much bigger than that. So why is this the framing? Another technical nitpick I had was several instances of poor lighting. Several situations where you had a really sunny backdrop and then a shaded area in the foreground. It doesn't take a professional to know that when you're placing your subject matter in front of a window on a sunny day, you either have to expose for the backdrop to get that through where this person's going to be a silhouette, or you need to expose for the person in front of it where the heavens are going to be behind them. There were several instances where they wanted us to clearly see something in the backdrop, but it was way too sunny out there in comparison to the foreground, so something was either way too bright or way too dark. It had no happy medium. Like, there's one shot that just drove me up the wall where we're looking straight out at a lake, and the lake is getting blasted by the hot sun. And perpendicular right in front of the lake is a walking path that is covered by trees. And on the walking path are two people having a conversation. And they clearly want us to see the lake in the backdrop because they exposed for this, but as a result, everything happening on the walking trail is all shrouded in darkness. It's two people having a conversation, you can barely see their faces. Like, just bring a single light out there and just blast your subject matter if you really want the backdrop to be visible. Like, this isn't a student film. This isn't an indie film without a budget. You are M. Night Shyamalan. You have resources. There's no excuse for it. Again, super nitpicky stuff that probably only bothers me, but hey, welcome back to long form reviews of Jake, where I talk shit that doesn't matter. All in all, this movie was disappointing, especially factoring in that I saw it overseeing The Whale, which finally showed up in my local theater. End of days, movie regret, basically the same thing. I guess I'm not good at big decision making either. I'm going to give Knock at the Cabin a C-. But that is just me. What do you think? Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments below. And make sure to subscribe to this channel to stay up to date with new reviews coming real soon. Stay safe. Thanks for checking in.